Guys, this is Intermediate Algebra Unit 5 Worksheet 4. This worksheet is to kind of help you guys get ready for your test, which is coming up next week. So again, if you have questions, come see Mr. Powell or myself. But if we get started, so looking at number 1, for all of these, we want to determine the slope of each line below. And we want to make sure that whatever we write, it has to be in lowest terms. So looking at number 1, we want to find the slope of line A. So line A, doesn't matter which point you start at. I'm going to start at this one. So at that point, I want to say slope is rise over run. So how much am I rising? I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So for my rise, I'm rising 4. And how much I run. So I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm running 8. So as a rise over run, that's 4 over 8. But again, guys, we have to write these in lowest terms. So in lowest terms, 4 divided by 8, that actually can reduce, 4 goes in, so I can reduce both of these by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So for line A, that has a slope of 1/2. Awesome. So line 2, same thing, we're going to do rise over run. In this case, our rise is actually going down. So I'm going to start at this one. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to go down 6. So in this case, we're going down. That means that's going to make that a negative. Going down 6, and then for my run, I'm going over 2. So in this case, my slope is negative 6 over 2. But I can reduce both of those by 2. So negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. And 2 divided by 2 is just 1. Or in this case, so it could be negative 3 over 1 or just 3. Okay? So moving on, that's the slope of line B. Now we want to find the slope of line C. So again, this is going to be rise over run. In this case, the difference, if I start at this point, I want to say, okay, well, am I actually rising any? Am I going to go up and then over to some point? Well, no. I'm actually just going to go straight over. So in this case, my rise, I'm not rising any. And then how much am I running? Well, I'm going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going over 5. And in this case, 0 divided by 5, that's okay. That's perfectly fine to do. That's just going to be 0. So in this case, I'm not rising, I'm not declining. So in this case, that's the only thing we have to say for that. So for line D, now if we're going to do rise over run, if I start at this point, I say, okay, well, how much am I going to go down? I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go down 3. So that means that's going to make that negative. And I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I look at this, negative 3 over 4, I can't reduce any of those by the same number. So the negative 3/4 is already in lowest terms. So the slope of line D is negative 3/4. Line E, so if I will find line E on my graph, that's right here. I want to say now we're finding the slope of this, so rise over run. So again, I don't know why, I always start at the bottom. So if I rise, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm rising 4. And then how much am I running on this one? Well, that would mean I'd be going right some amount or left some amount. But in this case, I'm doing neither. So I don't care about the run. The run in this part is actually going to be 0. So since I'm not running at all and my denominator is 0, this is what makes this undefined. So this one is going to be undefined, or a lot of you, we talked about this in class, same thing is no slope. So both of those are perfectly fine. Because dividing by 0, that means it's undefined. So in this case, undefined or no slope. Now finding line F, I'm going to start, I usually start at the right. So to get from this point to my second point, rising, so going up or down, I'm going to go down 1. So that means I'm going to go down 1. And then I'm running by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my run is 5. So in this case, that's in lowest terms. So my slope is negative 1/5. So line G, again, starting at whatever point you want, you could start here. So if I went here, I would go up 1, 2, 3. I'd go up 3, and then how much am I running? Well, I'm running 2 in the positive direction. So I get 3 over 2. Now notice, guys, if you wanted to, you don't always have to start from that point right there. So for example, if I say I started at my other one, so say I started at my second point right here. Well, my rise, that's because slope is rise over run. So how much am I rising to get to this second point? Well, to get there, I need to go down 1, 2, 3. I need to go down 3. So in this case, I would have had a negative 3. And I'm going back to, so my run, I'm going to go back to, that would make this a negative. So in this case, both answers, when I simplify, I'm still going to get 3 halves. Oops, cancel. So I'm still going to get 3 halves for my final answer on this one. Okay, so whichever point you start at, it doesn't matter. You will still end up with the same slope. So line H, last one, last but not least. So rise, again, we're going to go up 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go up 4. And then how many am I running? Well, I'm running over 2. So in this case, now my slope of this is 4 halves, but when I rewrite this in lowest terms, my slope is just going to be 2 over 1, or simply 2. Okay, so I hope you guys are getting more comfy with this. Again, we're going to get a lot more practice in the next couple of days on this type of stuff. So, so moving down on your sheet, the next section is we want to actually use slope formula to determine the slope of the line. So instead of being given a graph, we're actually just going to be given the 2 points. And we could plot these points on a graph, but we want to be able to use slope formula to determine the slope. So again, slope formula, to refresh our memories, that's just slope is going to be y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So again, these are just the difference in our x values over the difference in our y values. So again, if it helps, you can label. So in this case, that's going to be my x1. And that's going to be my y1. And in my second point, my 3 is going to be my x2, and my 2 is going to be my x2. So if that helps you, go right ahead. So when I write the slope in this, slope is going to be y2 minus y1. So that's going to be negative 2 minus negative 2. So again, guys, keeping the signs is going to be really tricky with these because we're subtracting negatives and all that fun stuff. So a negative 2 minus a negative 2, and then we're getting 3 minus 9. So again, simplifying even more, a negative 2 minus a negative 2. Well, that's really the same thing. Those actually cancel out and they become addition. So a negative 2 plus 2, that's going to be 0. And then 3 minus 9, that's going to be negative 6. So in this case now, when I have a 0 on the numerator, that's completely fine. So that's just going to reduce to just 0. Because 0 divided by any number is just 0. So the slope between these 2 points is 0. Alright, so continuing on, number 10. We're going to go with slope formula again. So again, we're going to take my y2 minus my y1. So it's going to be a negative 2 minus 6 all over x2 minus x1. So a negative 1 minus 8. And from here now, all I have to do is simplify. So negative 2 minus 6, that's going to be negative 8. And negative 1 minus 8, that's going to be negative 9. So in this case, they are in lowest terms, but I never want to write a negative over a negative. So really what this is saying is that my negatives are going to cancel out. I'm left with positive 8 over positive 9. So simplified, completely simplified, is 8/9 for the slope. So number 11, again, slope-intercept form. We're going to go y2 minus y1. So we're going to have 10 minus 5. And then we're going to do x2 minus x1. And we're going to get 8 minus 3 over here. So simplifying, that looks like well. So simplifying, we're going to get 10 minus 5, which is just 5. And then 8 minus 3 is 5. So now 5 divided by 5, any number divided by itself is just 1, or 1 over 1 in this case. So the slope between these two lines is just 1. Alright, so slope-intercept form again for number 12. Hopefully this is becoming better for you guys. So we're going to take my y2 minus my y1. So 0 minus 7 all over my x2 minus my x1. So this is where we have to be careful because we're getting a 9, a minus, a negative 1. So keeping those signs. So 0 minus 7, moving on, is negative 7. And here again, guys, we're subtracting a negative number. That really changes this into addition. So really saying 9 plus 1. So when we rewrite that, 9 plus 1, that's just going to be 10. And now we ask, okay, can I simplify these anymore or reduce it to lowest terms? I cannot. 10 does not go into 7, and there's only one negative. So we're left with a slope of negative 7 over 10. So number 13, slope-intercept form. We're doing y2 minus y1, 1 minus 3, all over x2 minus x1, which is 0 minus 0. So in this case, the top, it's not as important because I know on the bottom I'm going to actually have to be dividing by 0. So you should get negative 2 over 0. And again, we can't actually divide by 0. That's bad. So in this case, slope is either undefined or, like we talked about in class, this one could be no slope. So whichever one works, whichever one you can remember. So if we were to actually plot those guys, this basically says this is going to be a vertical line. So if we were to go through it, I'm going to have a point at 0, 3, somewhere in there at 0, 1, and I'd go up and I'd have a point at 0, 3. Okay, so last but not least, slope for the last one. We're taking our y2 minus our y1. So we're having negative 7 minus negative 4. So again, be careful keeping these signs. Don't lose a negative somewhere. And then x2 minus x1. So we're getting a negative 3 minus a negative 2. So within both of these, we're subtracting negative numbers. So these are going to both switch to addition. And we're left with, so on my numerator, I'm left with negative 7 plus 4. That's going to be negative 3. And then on my denominator, we are going to get a negative 3 plus 2, which is just negative 1. And so since I have a negative over a negative, I can rewrite that, and that's just going to be 3 over 1, or 3. So that's the end of page 1. So stay tuned for page 2. Thanks, guys.